you get to decide what you show yourself in the real world. So now you can kind of extend that into the virtual world and decide what I want to show people. And now I have like 10x, 100x the freedom to do it. Like I could have like pink spiky hair and a jetpack, and that's what I view as my identity. Or like online I go by Ellie. And
we live in a world where even in real life, like your next door neighbor, you might never have any interactions with them because you don't have anything in common, but you can connect with someone anywhere in the world in a space where you guys really feel at home.
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of NewForum. We're always excited to bring you brilliant and inspiring guests on our podcast. We're powered by NewCoin Foundation, focused on fostering the expansion of decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem and a community of visionaries, creators, and investors to spark conversations on the topics of crypto, the Metaverse, NFT, and everything Web3.
And in today's episode, we're super excited to have with us here Ellie and Zif, the managers of DreamRadio. Zif has a background in entrepreneurship, marketing, and design, and Ellie has a background in software development and artist management. We're going to talk with them about music NFTs, the creative economy, and the current and future state of the Metaverse. Hey, Ellie. Hey, Zif. We're super excited to have you with us today.
Thanks for having us.
It's good to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's start it off with you guys explaining how did you got into this space, like each of one of you maybe, and what is your background and how did you start it with DreamRadio?
So basically a little bit about how I got into crypto. So in 2017, I had a friend who was a software developer. He was telling me about Ethereum and Litecoin and Bitcoin. I was like, okay, what's that? I was really into like startups at the time. So like just like a bunch of Web 2 stuff. And I checked out like Coinmarketcap and I saw all the different coins on there and I was like, man, like what is this new type of like stock market or like whatever this thing is? And I just started reading more about it, like picked up a book and just like really understood like the future of what this technology can unfold. And then around 2018, the bear market hit and I kind of just stepped aside. Like I left all my investments in, but I didn't really like build or anything in the space. And in the past, in August, I got in and worked at a company that was doing NFTs, physical to digital goods. So basically like putting Yeezys, Rolexes, different things like that on chain. And from there, I kind of just like went fully into Web3 and just like, wanted to become a full DJ to really understand like what is this whole thing. And like, I believe that like, if you want to be a builder, you first have to be a user. And so, in this case, a collector. And so that's what I was doing for a while. And then I came across music NFTs, which is like, music's just something that's always been a big part of my life. I was always DJing and like, just always like looking about what types of music I can get into. And here we are now. I don't know if I cut out a little bit when Ellie was talking, but we met at like a music Web3 event and we just vibed like Ellie and the DreamRadio team. And we just, decided to go from there. And then here we are.
So like you said in my bio, I'm a software developer. So I went to school for computer science. I've been coding since I've been about like 16, 17 years old. And so that's really been something that was always been a passion for me. I also was really big into music in college and all my friends are musicians. And so I guess sort of gives background of the management stuff because people usually hear development and management and they're like, how does that work? But I always loved music. And so I started doing music management in college for some friends' bands of mine and worked my way with other artists. And then when moving out to LA, when I graduated, I was working full-time as an engineer for NBC doing cloud computing. And I started working like in various like different odd jobs in the music industry, like everything from running A&R at a record label to booking agency to like running my own little music collective. And so I got some of the like real world industry experience in the music world. But it was during that time there that little music collective that I started, I actually had a podcast on as well, where I would interview other artists. I would interview other people in the industry or whoever. And I actually had one of the people who wrote for our blog introduced me, said, "Oh, you got to have this guy come on our podcast and he's talking about these things called like music NFTs, like, or NFTs, like you got to talk to him." And I was like, okay, cool. Like, sounds interesting. And I just remember that conversation was 2 hours long, where it was actually with the founder of Catalog, Jeremy Stern, which is, someone who's really helped me guide me into the industry. So it was just really great to be able to like have that like 2 hour long conversation where everything that I loved about the music world was excited. Everything that I loved about the technology world was excited. And it was just like this really like immediate awareness that this is what I wanted to be doing. And so then this was, I guess, 2020. And so I stayed with my job for a little bit longer. I tried to bring them into crypto, and I was again working for NBC. So I actually had a pitch to Universal Theme Park to bring NFTs to Universal. And, I tried to do everything I could to like bring the world, like bring Web3 to the job, but realized that it wasn't where it was going to happen. And so, yeah, at that time I decided to jump full time. And now I work as a software engineer for a company called Lunar Crush, which we do data analytics. I guess to kind of like fill in that gap then of how I got started with Dream Radio. I guess I didn't really touch on that too much, but yeah, one of the odd jobs I guess I had said when I moved out to LA, I had done music management in Philly, which is where I went to college and where I was living prior. And so I, had found this music collective that I started. And me and my partner who actually like built it out, Hector, was also a DJ and also working with this music group called Dream Radio. And so I had management. They were looking for I had management experience. They were looking for a manager, and just kind of like fell into place that I was working with them. And so I came in like full swinging with like project management mode, and like had like a Kanban board of like, this is what we're going to do each week. And honestly, they've been pretty much like very consistent. We've been together through different ways for the past, I guess, like 2.5 years now or so. We've been working together. But one of the things that we've had the opportunity to do as this production collective is to actually, I guess we'll touch about it a little bit more, but to work with Splice pretty closely. And so we're working out this partnership with Splice to be able to bring like full length tracks along accompanying their sample packs. And so yeah, we've been, working that side of the world, been doing some like social media stuff, etc. And then probably this past year, I kind of realized that I wanted to really focus in my music management to Web3 music management. And so finally, Hector and I have been in the rabbit hole together for a while, but the rest of the team, we've like, they saw the light and they're like super deep into it now. So we're really like excited to grow and build. And so when I was out in LA, I guess it was, I don't remember, a few months ago, we were at an event and met Zeev, and just kind of synergy was there, and decided to bring him on and to work with us on this. And it's honestly been amazing so far. So very stoked to see what we do moving forward.
What is it that you find the most attractive about Web3? Because I know that there's the monetization, aspect, and then there's also this aspect that you get to really collaborate with your fans. That you're no longer going through this like one directional kind of like experience that most of the time we get on these other Web2, I'd say, like platforms. So with the Web3 tools, you can easily interact, your fans can easily access you. So what is it that really does it for you guys?
Yeah, I think to me it's there's a lot of things that excite me. I mean, I feel like I could like talk about music and crypto and blockchain and just like stick with a smile on my face, because I'm so excited about everything that we're all building. And I think that kind of is part of what is so great about this space, is that there is a lot to be built and a lot that we can expand on. I think first and foremost for me, having worked in the music industry for a while, having had artists of mine get signed to labels and these sorts of things, I've seen the sort of not so great things that happen kind of behind closed doors in the music industry. And some of the unfortunate positions that really genuinely talented and just people who have a lot of to offer the world get sort of put in these sticky situations. And because they're bound by contracts or because they're financially incentivized, they force themselves to like maybe even sacrifice a little bit of themselves, sacrifice a little bit of their art. So I think it's something that I see the way right where it is right now. I see people being able to be genuine and authentic, and they're be able to create their art. They're able to interact directly with their fans. They're able to have this sort of like non-closed door there's transparency. Like that is what I love. I love that we are all aware what is going on in all these different sectors. We can see, the data is all available. But I think on top of that, what excites me the most is that this is just the beginning. And the fact that you can have a digital asset stored on a blockchain and we can all see it, that's great. And it's, and in itself is an amazing innovation. But there is going to be so much more that is built on. And like, I'm really excited to see how much more like we can integrate with DeFi, integrate with gaming, integrate with VR characters and all these sort of things that like has only even like sort of like tip of the iceberg. We're just not there yet. And I think there's even stuff we can't even think about. That's what excites me, is that we're constantly building every single day.
I think I agree with all that. And yeah, just like in regards to, how just, interacting online has changed. Like, I used to be on Instagram all the time, but I felt that, it was very just like, I was looking at other people all the time. They were looking at me, but we weren't really connecting beyond that. Like maybe we were like DMing or something, but it was just very like, there wasn't depth to it. And I didn't feel like I was growing as a person. But, once like Twitter Spaces, like Clubhouse type stuff, it started happening for NFTs, I really felt that like, people can actually have a place to like motivate each other. It's like you're in a place where people are encouraging you to do stuff. You're encouraging them. And, that makes you want to, chase higher heights than you're doing now. So just like that whole idea of interacting and empowering each other, and, then add the monetization factor to it. Not even monetization, but just like the ability to have a wallet and send funds wherever you desire is a big deal, because you don't have to be tied down to any platform that enables you to, maybe like Patreon or something that allows you to help creators get funded. Like you can do that off of whatever medium you desire, or whatever the creator desires. So that is a very powerful thing.
I can only like the words that you're saying and the things that you're doing. I think this is so inspiring, because I have a huge passion for music as well. And, for example, you mentioned Splice, and I use that program myself, and I'm wondering, do you think they could potentially, something like this, could it potentially be like an NFT platform? Could there be something like this? And also, what is the long-term utility of music NFTs compared to like streaming services? And like what do you think, how they're going to compete with each other?
So I can touch on that real quick, and then I'll let Ellie, say whatever she feels. But yeah, I think, difference here is, there's, when we say music NFTs, I think it's still a pretty general term, but there's nuances to music NFTs. So one of them is, if we mention platforms like Sound or Catalog, most of those music NFTs are just collectibles. So those are done for the sake of patronage, just to support the creator or the musician, whatever you want to call them. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee the collector anything but collecting that asset. The hopes are that if the creator has a rise to fame and they become someone, really popular, then, if you collect one of their first digital assets, then that might go up in value. But there's really no necessity for them to supply utility to their collectors if they don't want to. And the other side of it is, royalty based. So essentially, an artist can allocate 50%, 20%, however much percentage of the song that they want for the collectors to collect, and they can, supply as many, additions as they want for that. And now the collector will receive royalties from the streams and wherever that song earns revenue. So that's a little bit about the differences. And I think people really need to understand that, especially musicians, before they start creating their own music NFTs. Yeah,
I think with music NFTs, there's definitely those are definitely the two that like kind of distinguishing things that come to mind for myself. And I think it even comes down to more like what is actually in the NFT that you're providing to people, this collectible. Is there actually in the metadata a link to a song? Because like what you were talking about, was Eva talking about with like the royalties, like if you actually buy an NFT on Royal, which is it's founded by Justin Blau. He's the DJ, one of the biggest like music people in the space. When you actually buy an NFT from Royal, you're not buying like in the metadata, there is no like song asset itself. It is basically just like this like contract saying that the streams he gets from Spotify, all these different places, like you now kind of are entering into like securities like that that basically are providing people like shares of this asset. And so I think that that's really interesting and to explore. And I've also, there's a company called Opulus who's also doing some interesting stuff there, where they're essentially are registering each of these assets as securities with the SEC, and you can also take out loans against them. So again, this kind of goes back to the things that excite me, is that like now we're entering DeFi world where you can now have opportunities to take out a loan against your music, where like as a musician, right, where it stands today, like it is extremely difficult for you to, as an artist, to go to a bank and say, hey, I've made this much money on streams. Can you give me a loan so I can go make a music video or do whatever? Like most banks are going to be like what? No, like why would we do that? It's like just not the traditional way of funding. And now we have the opportunity to like strip away that and really provide this decentralized financial system to also back the digital asset, which is really fascinating. And then you also have, when you're thinking about it, you have this idea of music composition, and that's kind of where I think Splice world ties into all of this. It's funny. So I had been working with Splice for a few months, and so when I first had this learned about NFTs and these sorts of things, like immediately my brain was like, well, why don't we just create a decentralized Splice? Like have all the stems on chain, track all the stems, and then every song can be just like composite NFTs. Like, yeah, let's do it. Which, sounds great. Really, really difficult to implement in actuality, just because of all of the different ways that actually, like, if you understand like performance rights registration, and like when you go on to ASCAP or BMI to actually put in the royalties distributions of the song, like most of the time, like that's not happening on chain in the same realm. And like there's just a lot of murky areas that you can get into when you're doing that. But one company that I know, I actually have a call with them later today, but that is doing something that's pretty interesting. It's called Arpeggi. They're basically created a DAW, which is digital audio workstation for music. And so they have like all of these stems that exist as NFTs, and you can actually go and like create a song. And I think they're still like working out their like beta V2, but I'm really excited about their team and everything they're building. And, I think with Splice, there's a lot of opportunities. Right now, we're looking to basically be the foot in the door for them to be getting into this space and like showing them what NFTs can do, because, talking to them a lot, I think that they have everything that Web3 stands for. They were just like 10 years too early, if that makes sense. Like, so they started building this company for the goals of like, we want to be for the producers. We want to like make this easy. We want to make it transparent. We don't want to have to deal with like stripping and illegally taking samples from other places, blah, 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 all this stuff. But like blockchain wasn't really predominant at the time that they were launching. And so they started going down a path that like, now that they're pretty big corporation, and so like they can't just like decide, oh yeah, we're just going to shift everything and do crypto. Like there's a lot more, I guess, bureaucracy or whatever you want to call it in place. But I think that they're curious, and I think that like their ethos is very Web3. Like what they stand for is very decentralized and like in its mentality of how they came about in the first place. So I do feel like that that synergy will work its way there. And again, this is just speculation, whether it's from them launching stems themselves as NFTs or songs that they work on. And that's kind of what we're doing right now, is the songs that is created from a sample pack that we're providing as Dream Radio to Splice. The song that was made from all of those stems is going to be minted as an NFT, as a song. And so that's their first kind of bridge into Web3, which I think is really great. And it's kind of like shows the community in Web3 what they can do. And there's all sorts of ways to like gamify that stem or like song creation from those stems, etc., moving forward. But that's kind of where I see it right now.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little bit, the cool thing about this is I think just the essence of crypto in general has been like to make a lot of things open source, and to allow that innovation to happen where if a protocol exists and another group of people want that protocol to go a certain direction, they can just fork that protocol and compete directly against it using the code from the original. And so, this idea also applies to NFTs, where there's derivatives and, kind of these sub projects to a main project that came out. And so, if we can empower our community to use our music for their own music, think about all like the possible collaborations that can happen and like new sounds that we haven't heard before. And that would really just allow, not even us, but just in general, artists and community to collaborate.
It sounds like there are a lot of opportunities, with Web3 tools for artists, but also, I cannot help but think about like the barriers of like entry for some of the non-crypto natives, getting into the space, trying to download Discord, trying to, understand all these things. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think, this is all building blocks right now. I think we're still like, this is a little cliche, but, a lot of the things said in this space are a little cliche, but, one of them is that we're early. And I really think that we are early though, because like right now, if you look at just the traditional internet, there's a certain tech stack. All the tools that were used to build the modern internet they're fully scaled. So anyone can easily come and build something new. Without having to know all the depths of everything, all the layers that come with it. And in crypto, we're still building those layers, that tech stack, to make it work for everyone. And so right now, if you want to enter the space, of course, it's going to be a learning curve, and it's gonna require a lot of time. Like whenever I sit down with a friend or anyone who's kind of interested in learning a little bit more, it's like, I have to warn them, like, guys, we can't run through all of this in like an hour or 2 hours. Like this is going to take, out of your own time. Like I can give you the resources, but you're going to have to spend, those months in the space to really understand the ethos. But I do think a great thing, like I mentioned earlier, is like these Twitter spaces. Twitter has been working so well because it's just a place where, Web3 people and Web2 people alike kind of exist. And if Web2 people come across, a Web3 room, let's say specifically in music, like there's so many musicians that, are independent and are looking for ways to monetize and make this their full-time craft. They can just hop in one of these rooms and they hear like a little bit about what, other artists are experimenting with, the tools that they're using. And then they get inspired to keep learning and just joining these rooms. And I think that's like a really powerful thing that I've been observing.
Barriers to entry as an artist. I think there is a lot right now that it can seem difficult, or it can be scary for a lot of people to like, I don't know, like I feel like we all probably, if you're in Web3, there's probably words that you use that like can be like something that you're like, oh, why are people saying like GM all the time? Like all these different things. It's just like, there's all these, how we all communicate. I think the biggest barrier to entry for a lot of people though, like I advise a lot of artists, I advise a lot of, family members, friends, anyone who's always like asking me about from the investment standpoint, from whatever, is just like that initial understanding of how to like pay for anything is always like so difficult for people, because people are used to like Venmo or Zelle or Cash App or anything like that, and like everything they have is just like super linked to their bank account, and they're just like, oh, I just sent them money, blah blah blah. Like they don't understand this whole idea of wallets. They don't understand this whole idea of like why is there gas, and like what does this even mean, and like they don't understand it because what they do it already. Like we all pay using, like a lot of us pay using Visa cards, right? And people don't understand that there's like actually a fee that goes alongside for making a transaction using Visa. And so there's all this stuff that like already exists in the world today, but the technology is masked. And so people can interact with that without having to know what a server is, without having to know how we get data to load on your iPhone when you're sending a Snapchat to somebody or you're loading somebody's TikTok video. Like nobody talks about the databases that AWS has for how we actually do this stuff. So I think that's a big part of this, is like, eventually I'm a believer that we won't use the word NFT anymore. This idea of having to like understand what blockchain is, having to like have all of these concepts that we have today, like I don't think people will think twice about it in the future. I don't think people will like think and have to understand what an NFT is. They'll just be like, oh yeah, this is like digital ownership. Like the same way I own my Lamborghini outside, whatever, maybe one day. I also own this Bored Ape on this. It's like, it's the same thing. And so I think, especially as the younger generations grow up, like they won't know anything different. Like we all grew up, and I grew up on a pretty digital age, like with social media. And once it just becomes the normal thing of like, yeah, you have your physical ownership and you have your digital ownership. Like, I don't think people are going to have all of this sort of like fear a little bit that they have, or maybe just unawareness of it. And so I think there's a big weight on developers and for product individuals to build out applications and systems that have a proper user experience, so that it isn't a scary step to jump into Web3. It isn't like, oh my God, I have to do all these things that I can't even understand. And like, if any of us, a lot of us, I'm sure, were involved in crypto early on, where there was a way more steps than there are today to do anything. And think about, so even just in like a few years, how much user experience has grown and how much easier it has been to provide data and information to people. And I think once people start clicking and it starts to click for people that they can just like connect their wallet, and they have in their wallet is everything. Like they don't need to have a separate Instagram account, all of these things. It's just, yeah. When people have that aha moment where they're like, oh, I get it. Like, yeah, of course that makes sense. Why were we not doing this? Like, that's always, to me, is like the breakthrough. Like, yes, finally got it through to them.
Yeah. And to add on to that a little bit, I think a big problem here is, especially Ethereum mainnet, right? The gas fees are so high. So that's a barrier to entry in itself for a lot of people. And so when these gas fees are so high, sometimes more expensive than the actual asset, people from the outside might be like, this is a scam. Like, why am I supposed to spend so much money on this? And so I think a big part of this is, adding those layer 2s and getting people onboarded to layer 2s to make these transaction fees easier and less expensive. And also, there's this whole dilemma though, as well. I mean, this is something that I think most people don't think about when they're entering the space, but also like the idea of decentralization. We're so used to this like centralization of everything with all the systems that we use today that people don't even think about the differences. And that, like Ellie was kind of mentioning, right? Like AWS and like all these like data providers, like no one thinks about it. And so, yeah, a big thing here is also like educating people as to why decentralization is important. But, again, it's that's why there's things like Solana and some other protocols that are a little more centralized that make everything a little bit easier to use. But we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll end up, I think the market decides at the end of the day. So we'll just have to see.
I will definitely just have to see, because I think it's, for me, it's the potential of Web3, Web3 tools that I'm looking forward to, because it hasn't all been ironed out yet. And whenever we have conversations with all these amazing guests we've had on NewForum, we hear a lot about the fact that this is not yet here, and in a couple of years it will be fully realized. So speaking about potential, and something that I think it's debatable whether it's here yet or it's not here yet, is the Metaverse. And I'm curious to know, what do you think is the current state of the Metaverse, and also what are some of the possibilities for the music industry?
I mean, I think where we're at right now is very like we're at very, very, very early in the actual abilities to have this idea of the Metaverse that Zuck talks about, or whatever. Like, the technology to actually be able to have a full life conversation in a virtual reality in the same room as somebody real time, and then scale that to like 1,000 people real time. Like, we're a few years away, or maybe less, but to be able to do like a full, even like live concert that way, like where I can look over and I see somebody there and they see me, like, that's just, we're just not there yet. But I think the potential is very strong. We have this potential of creating a virtual performance. And so if you think about, like, look back at your life, and maybe if you've been to music shows or anything like that, like think about your favorite concert you've ever been to. And like, you're like, oh, maybe you cried during it, maybe you laughed, maybe you like sing along to every word, maybe you're at the front of the gate, like, moshing with people, who knows, whatever. But that's a moment you'll like, that show you'll probably remember for a long time. And that feeling that you had, you'll probably remember for a long time. And the way that you can hold on to that memory at the moment is you take a video of it on your phone, and you maybe look back at it every once in a while. But you don't really have any way to relive that experience, but any experience. But we'll focus in on music right now. So imagine when you start having these virtual concerts, and you start having a virtual experience that is rendered, whether it's through Unreal or Blend, like, you have the 3D animated files are all there, and you're live streaming it, etc. but the performance itself is done by an avatar that is a digital representation of whoever this person was. But now you have like an a file that basically was that entire experience, right? And so whether your NFT, if your an avatar is an NFT or something like that was there, whatever it may be, even if you weren't there for the first show, like you could relive that thing again and again and again, and you could be a part of this experience that was there. And so I really think the ability to have music be something in the metaverse is really fascinating to me. And I'll touch briefly on like a concept that I was working on a little bit was a virtual singing competition in the metaverse. We exist or moving into this like digital age of communication, and we're all, existing online as PFPs or whatever it may be. But I think that there is, and I think people are excited about that push, but we're still very much like trapped by, I think, this like social media realm of like judging people by what they look like and how, if they think they're attractive or whatever it may be. And so with these virtual identities, we kind of get liberation from that. And so I think where you're able to actually utilize this, where it matters more than anything, is like if you're judging someone's vocal ability. And so that's why I think this idea of like a singing competition in the metaverse is super fascinating, because if you're judging someone's vocal ability, it doesn't matter if they're a, 6'12" person from some country, or they're like 85 and they live in Kentucky, or they're 14 and they live in the Swiss Alps, or like all of these things. Like it doesn't matter, because you can actually create yourself who you want to be digitally. And so I think that opportunity is really special, not solely just for music, but for individuals in general. Like when we have the capabilities to interact with each other, and we can define our own identities, like the same way that we all, if we go out to a dinner or a party, we decide what we want to wear that day, or how we want to do our hair, or what, if we want to wear lipstick or anything like that. You get to decide what you show yourself in the real world. So now you can kind of extend that into the virtual world and decide what I want to show people. And now I have like 10x, 100x the freedom to do it. Like I could have like pink spiky hair and a jetpack, and that's what I view as my identity. Or like online, I go by Ellie. And
I argue that we already, and I know a lot of people argue this as well, that we've already been living in the metaverse to an extent, right? Like we spend over probably 50% of our day on social media, on some sort of technology screen, whatever. And so, yeah, I think it's just going to be an evolution of where we are now. So right now, everything's 2D. It's, like we're on this Zoom call right now, and, we just see each other's faces, but we don't have an immersive space where we can chill and like lounge and just like do it as we would in person. So that's going to be a very powerful tool for not only, specifically to musicians. I think you asked, what would this do? Well, imagine that you owned a collectible from your favorite musician, and that musician has a certain style and theme and persona. What if you could, once you play the track in your virtual space with all your friends, that space kind of fits the theme of that artist or that specific song or album that you're playing. And so it just decorates that space. Maybe you all have some clothing that represents that. So it's really just a way to extend what we can do in the real world, and, allow just this customization factor that we haven't been able to do quite yet. And so, along those lines, I think it's just going to unlock so many, like in terms of concerts, we're all just going to be able to, like this is obviously something that has been happening a little bit in Decentraland, but like Ellie mentioned, like we can go to a concert from our bedroom. Like, let's say we're sick and we have COVID, but we still want to go out or something. We can just throw on our VR and, hang out with the homies still, and have a good time. So yeah, it's just a way to really extend what we've been doing now in reality. But I think Ellie, mentioned a lot of the points that I was thinking about. But yeah, it's going to be super interesting evolution, and I think it's definitely going to happen. So
I think this is so cool, like what you just mentioned about the avatars, and also about having an extended space for for like your community, you know, because you might be living all around the world, but you have somebody that you really vibe with from another country. And I saw that actually in Clubhouse, like during the pandemic, they were doing these like song competitions and things like that. And I thought that was really cool because you can just tune in and then you just, like you said, you don't look at them, you just hear the voice and it's just all about the music. I think that's great. Also for me, I'm part of like a community from London where they always host like live events, and I'm like, all these musicians I met, I hope that they can make NFTs and make something in the space so they can sustain themselves, because making music and videos and like touring, all these things are so expensive if you're doing it on your own. Like that is a lot of capital that you have to put up front, like marketing, everything. So yeah, I really hope that, you know, people like you guys are changing a bit the space and we can make it a more fairer music Web3 space. Have you guys ever seen a Metaverse performance? Like how, and if so, what was the experience?
Yeah, I've been to a couple. I'm part of a few like PFT communities. So they sometimes, Deadfellas specifically, does some like Decentraland stuff. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool. But, you know, for me, like, I still prefer going to a real concert, if I'm going to be honest. Like, it's just not, if I have the option, right? If I'm in my room and it's like quarantine or something, maybe it could be a cool little experience to have around and chill and whatever. But yeah, I think in person still is superior. So, you know, I think the more that we can work towards that, you know, it'll be a great experience. But yeah, like I think it's not ready to scale as of now, especially even for people within Web3 and crypto. I don't think everyone's on Decentraland or Sandbox.
Yeah, I think I heard the question was just like the experience of them. Yeah, like it feels very Minecraft, maybe even like Sims like I don't know. I work my blockchain that I'm built off is Zilliqa, and so they just launched Metapolis, which is like their metaverse, and like it is, you know, I think there's a lot of potential there, but all of these companies, like, yeah, the actual like we want it to be like we're watching Avatar, like the movie, and like, you know, it's like that level of like production quality, but we're not there. And I think one of the things that I was looking to actually do with the Metaverse singing competition until we were there, because I didn't want to sacrifice this like level of production and like having it feel really tangible, was to utilize what people did. And actually I learned all about this before I even like saw something about it with Avatar. But they have like these mocap suits that you can actually buy, which you wire up to Unreal Engine, and you can actually like have all of your motions, everything that you do, be wired up to your actual physical in real life motions, facial expressions, all these things. So I think that's really interesting, just from like creating a digital character and being able to perform as that character. I think that's something, yes, we can do that. Whether that exists like in a metaverse and like that's decentralized in that way, I don't think, yeah, that's fully there yet. I wanted to touch on one of the things you just mentioned, though, is just like the musicians that you met in London and all this stuff. And I think for that, and like the musicians that are touring and all these things, like this right where we are right now with Web3, with 4 musicians, it is such an independent artist is like playground. Being an independent artist right now in Web3, you have a lot of flexibility and opportunity, and a lot less red tape to run to try to jump over the same way you do if you're assigned to a label. And that alone is like should be such a motivation. And when I do talk to artists and I, you know, express all of this, like, no, just because you make music, it doesn't guarantee you the fact that you're going to go sell a song as an NFT for $3. Like, we'll just set that bar real quick, because there's a lot of people that like the musicians, they get in, they're like, oh, I saw this person made, you know, $100,000. Well, I want to do that. And it's like, if anyone tells me that's their motivation, like, okay, like obviously money is great, but like, let's take a step back before we jump there. Like, yeah, there's opportunity for that to happen for sure. Like there's anything could happen right now in this space. But I think, you know, it's just about like learning and building around and coming with creative ideas. And you as an independent artist, or if you are an independent artist, you have these abilities to pioneer and do whatever you want. Like you can literally think of something. Chances are it might have been done. Chances are it might not have been done. Like And then you can just go and do it. Like, you don't have to worry about all these systems that have existed previously. You don't have to follow the Spotify streaming model mechanism. If you have an idea for something, chances are there's like probably going to be a bunch of people who are hype about your idea and want to build with you. Like, frankly, that's how Zeev and I got connected. We were just both super hype about what we were doing, and we wanted to build together. And I think that's the beauty of Web3 right now, is that it's such a community of individuals, and it's welcoming. Everyone wants to help you out in whatever ways that they can. And so, whatever knowledge people can have to share around, just, if you're vibing with somebody on a Twitter space or however it may be, or find some IRL event, like, those are all really great opportunities to start getting into it as an independent artist.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, specifically in music, how, we've seen all these algorithms on Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is, they've kind of made it so artists have to create a certain sound. And, if they're signed to a record label, makes it even more pressure for them to like have that same sound so they can be heard and be added to Spotify playlists and whatnot. But here, we have the ability to connect with everyone around the world. And like, I think the resurgence of, kind of like fallen genres like classic rock or like old school hip hop, we'll see a resurgence with those. And we'll also see brand new genres because, there's a big thing with generative music where you can just feed a song to an algorithm. It can spit out a bunch of different versions of that, and then can be recycled for a new type of song. Or, two people hanging out in a Discord from different ends of the world, you can sing in different languages, make a brand new genre with those two languages that we've never heard before. So just like the possibilities are endless. And I'm really excited to see, all the new music that's going to be coming out, but I think it's going to be something that we haven't seen before. So it's really exciting. And yeah, I think, to just talk about community a little bit more, we live in a world where even in real life, like your next door neighbor, you might never have any interactions with them because you don't have anything in common, but you can connect with someone anywhere in the world in a space where you guys really feel at home. And that's something that's really powerful because you can choose where you want to be and who you want to be with, rather than, being limited by your geography. So that's very powerful. And, that's something we're trying to do with Dream Radio as well. I think IRL is really important now still. So obviously most of us are in LA. So we'll be doing a lot of IRL events, but, just providing that space for people to share their music, exchange resources about production, and just like help each other get better at their craft. That's at the end of the day, I think the most powerful thing from all of this.
Well said. I mean, I like it when you said there are endless possibilities, or the possibilities are endless in Web3. And I really liked Ellie's transparency. I think sometimes people, or like I would say, like new artists coming into this space just have this idea of like, oh, I'm just going to make this big money and that's it. But I think there's more to it. Like you said, it's these tools allow for diversity. It allows for inclusivity and just more innovation. So I think that it's great that, you both brought your amazing perspectives. And I think I understand better how you two are like a power team, because you both have it's like there's a common ground, but you all bring this like different spices to the I don't even know, to the soup. I can't even find the right way to explain it, but I think you guys are like amazing, rich team, bring all your amazing background skills and ideas. And I think this chat has been really insightful, really informative. And I can't wait for it to be released for the musicians in our community to get to listen and to get to hear what you guys are up to and everything you're working on and all you had to say about the space. And I'm wondering, where can they find you on your social platform?
I was just about to say, 100%. I think the whole goal of this, and whenever I have the opportunity to talk to people, is just to give them all the resources. I'm always very happy to have those conversations with people. I love those, like I said earlier, those aha moments to when it gets the breakthrough with artists, and just challenging them in a creative way of you have this idea where you think you are, but you could also be doing anything. And so just trying to get their brain to start churning. The aha moment for me, they may have their own aha moment, but when mine for working with them is when they come up with an idea. Like when I hear them say something that I haven't heard before, I'm like, yes, do it. Like whatever, like there's no rules. Like just go try it. Why not? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, great. Like that's awesome. So yeah, that being said, if anyone listening like has any ideas they want to bounce off of or have any, questions, need advice, I'm available on Twitter is probably the easiest way to find me. I think they'll have my last name in here, but it's Ellie Farisi, ELLIE FARRISI. And my avatar is Ellie, and I'm like a little like blue purple alien thing. Either that or I don't know. You can DM me there, and I'll give you like my Telegram or something. It's probably the best way to find me.
Yeah, so I'm also on Twitter. You can my @ is 0x spicy tuna. I started off pseudo anonymous. Now I'm not. I use my name, but still my Twitter handle. So you can find me there. Also DM me any questions you might have, or if you're an artist and you're looking to collaborate, please reach out. We'd love to talk. Lastly, follow the Dream Radio with an underscore on Twitter. That is our team page there. And we'll be hosting like spaces weekly. So please feel free to join.
I wanted to say quickly before Joy wraps up, I want to know what's behind spicy tuna. That name made me a bit hungry, but maybe for another time, because
maybe
I know that.
I'll just say real quick. I was trying to buy an ENS domain name, and I was like, what's a cool one that doesn't exist? So I just started typing out all these words, and like, oh, I love sushi, and I'm like, oh, spicy tuna, let's try that. And I typed it in, it worked. Spicytuna.eth, and then it came to life. That's it.
Awesome.
That's pretty creative. I cannot wait to see what you guys are up to, and I'm really excited, especially on the music side. Like I think there's so much space for growth, and so thank you guys for being part of today's forum, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today. And if you guys want to get also more involved within our community, make sure to follow us on Twitter and also IG. We are NewForum_NCO and also NewCoin, and we have a private Telegram group where we discuss everything that's happening within the Web3 space. So stay tuned for that. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we see you in the next episode of NewForum. And thank you guys so much for participating. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.